Hello and welcome to my podcast where I discuss the origins of all sorts of things. I'm your host, Danny Payne, and this is On the Origin of Everything. Today I'm talking about the origin of the happiest place on Earth. 900 million people have visited Disneyland since its doors opened in 1955. It's a magical place for kids to be sure, but more and more it has become a place for adults to enjoy without kids. So much so that the term Disney adult has become a widely discussed label in recent years to describe adults who are deeply devoted to all things Disney. Walt Disney started something truly revolutionary, impacting American culture and beyond. And today we're going to dive into the origin story of how Disneyland came to be. Let's do it! Walt Disney was born in 1901 in Chicago, but his family moved to Marceline, Missouri shortly after he was born. It was in Marceline where he first manifested a taste and aptitude for drawing and painting in school. It has been speculated that Marceline was the inspiration for Main Street USA in Disneyland, by the way. Walt's family later moved to Kansas City, where he began to study cartooning and took classes at the Kansas City Art Institute and School of Design. Near his house in Kansas City was Electric Park, a 27-acre amusement park loaded with rides, tens of thousands of electric lights, nightly firework displays, water attractions, theatrical performances, immaculate landscaping, and even a little train that ran around its perimeter. Walt frequented this awesome park as a kid, and while building his own park wasn't yet on his mind, historians note that Electric Park would later influence his sense of what an amusement park could be. The Disneys moved back to Chicago in 1917, where Walt attended McKinley High School. There, he drew cartoons for the school paper, aspiring to one day get a job as a newspaper cartoonist. What a humble goal. It's clear that he had a passion for drawing and cartooning from an early age. But Walt had to hit pause on his ambitions to serve in World War II as an ambulance driver for the American Red Cross. When the war ended, he moved back to Kansas City, where he found work drafting illustrations and applying ink to sketches at various commercial art studios. This is where he met a young, talented artist by the name of Ub Iwerks, who would become his first business partner. They founded their own animation studio called Laugh-O-Gram Films in 1922, which ended in bankruptcy after their major distributor went belly up and never paid Walt and Iwerks. They sold their equipment, closed up shop, and moved to Hollywood to start over, this time with the help of Walt's brother, Roy, as their business manager. Walt and Roy opened the Disney Brothers Cartoon Studio and resumed producing their cartoon animations, one of which became a sensation, a happy, mischievous little mouse named Mickey. Walt's new company would pump out a bunch of great cartoon shorts, like The Three Little Pigs and The Tortoise and the Hare, as well as the creation of iconic characters like Donald Duck, Pluto, and Goofy. This small enterprise would grow to become Walt Disney Productions, which released feature-length cartoons, the first of which was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in 1937. Walt had accomplished a lot already, but he was just getting started. It was around this time that Walt was struck with a significant bit of inspiration to build a place like Disneyland. Reflecting on where the idea came from, he explained, "Disneyland really began when my two daughters were very young. Saturday was always Daddy's Day, and I would take them to the merry-go-round and sit on a bench eating peanuts while they rode. And sitting there alone, I felt there should be something built, some kind of family park, where parents and children could have fun together." In a different interview, he summed it up even more simply. "It all started with a daddy with two daughters wondering where he could take them, where he could have a little fun with them too." The seed had been planted, but Walt wasn't ready to devote a lot of attention to this idea, as he was pretty busy with his animated film productions all through the 40s. To name just a few memorable releases, Pinocchio, Fantasia, Dumbo, and Bambi all came out in the early 40s. Then Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, and Peter Pan in the early 50s. Walter Prolific Disney over here. He was on fire. But while his studio was releasing steady content, they weren't all profitable. Pinocchio, Fantasia, and Bambi lost money, and World War II eliminated foreign markets. Once again, Walt was in financial trouble, being millions of dollars in debt. He needed to diversify his revenue stream, preferably a source of income that was steady, as opposed to relying on a box office influx of money. One of his ideas was to build Mickey Mouse Park on a 16-acre lot across the street from his studio in Burbank. He went as far as drawing sketches, layouts, and concept art, some of which were later incorporated into Disneyland. Ultimately, Mickey Mouse Park was never built, as the city of Burbank refused to approve its construction. Roy, too, thought it was a bad idea. Why would anyone doubt Walt Disney, especially after having established himself as such a giant in the animated film industry? Well, there's a bit of context here that needs to be considered. If you listen to our episode on roller coasters, you'll remember that the heyday of amusement parks was the 1920s, but by the 40s and 50s, they were on the decline. Not so much because people lost interest in them, but because many urban amusement parks were strategically placed at the end of rail lines. You see, they weren't just entertainment venues, they were transportation incentives too. Putting an amusement park at the end of a trolley line increased ridership on weekends, but with the rise of car culture and suburban living, fewer people were riding trolleys. Rail lines started closing, detrimental to amusement parks. These parks also began to receive a bad reputation for being chaotic, dirty, noisy, and poorly maintained. They had become a place visited more by teenagers than by families. The amusement park was a dying business. Maybe not places like Coney Island, but the traditional urban trolley parks were decaying or going away completely. So Walt Disney faced an uphill battle trying to get banks to see the vision of his own amusement park. The city of Burbank rejected the proposal to build Mickey Mouse Park, fearing it would attract a rough crowd, only to probably fail in the end anyway. And Roy felt that this endeavor would bankrupt their company. The fact that amusement parks had become less desirable fueled Walt's dream of creating a better, more family-friendly version. He wasn't looking to create what had already been done. He wanted to make something radically different from what existed. A place built around themes, an immersive experience, a story-driven environment for families to enjoy together, as opposed to just a place to take the kids to enjoy a thrill ride. Using today's terminology, Walt was looking to build a theme park, not an amusement park. That was his intention with Mickey Mouse Park, but when he was turned down, he didn't give up on the idea. If anything, the setback hardened his determination. The small footprint of Mickey Mouse Park was never going to work for him anyway, as he realized he would need to acquire more land for what he was envisioning. But how would he accomplish this seemingly impossible goal? Where would he find the money? And where would Disneyland be built, if not in Burbank? In 1953, Walt commissioned the Stanford Research Institute to conduct a site selection study for his new park. Location, 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 right? It made sense to start there. The study produced a report titled An Analysis of Location Factors for Disneyland, in which it identified parts of Southern California that were growing, that were also close to heavily populated areas, and were directly accessible via the newly developed freeways. Anaheim emerged as the strongest candidate for Disneyland. A park that was sufficient for everything Walt wanted to build would require more than just 16 acres, as he had originally planned with Mickey Mouse Park. Electric Park sat on 27 acres, remember? Well, Disneyland was going to require 160 acres. That amount of land wasn't just sitting there for the taking, of course. He was going to need to buy out multiple landowners. The good news is that the city of Anaheim was receptive to the project. recognizing its potential as a major economic growth opportunity. So, Walt had the location, he had the approval of Anaheim officials, and he had the construction plans ready to go. But where would he find the money? When Walt sets his mind to something, there's really no stopping him. He viewed Disneyland as the future of his company, and he went all in. He started selling assets, notably a vacation home, and he even borrowed against his own life insurance policy. But that wasn't going to be enough. And this is where his brother Roy, despite his initial reservations, stepped in to try to make this happen. Roy Disney traveled to New York to pitch Disneyland to TV networks. But why TV? Well, while Hollywood was threatened by the rise of TV, Walt had embraced it. He was an early believer in the power of TV to promote his upcoming films. He had already produced a TV special called 1 Hour in Wonderland to promote Alice in Wonderland. So, Roy had gone to New York in hopes to secure financing for Disneyland through a TV deal. The idea was to create a TV series for a network in return for investing in the construction of Disneyland. However, both NBC and CBS rejected Roy's proposal. Another roadblock. It's hard for me to fathom how someone like Walt Disney, with his track record, and Roy, armed with the blueprints, the concept art, and the site selection study, still were not able to find a single investor willing to take the risk on this incredible endeavor. But of course, I'm looking at it from this side of history, having seen with my own eyes what came to be. No one in 1954 had ever seen anything like what Walt and Roy were trying to achieve. It seemed way too risky. I'm going to take a quick break right here, and when I come back, I'll continue the story of Disneyland with the one network who was willing to take a chance on this crazy investment. Don't go anywhere. This episode is brought to you by nothing. To help keep ads off this show, please consider donating by clicking the Patreon link in the show notes, or by going to patreon.com/ontheoriginofeverything. Another way you can support the show is by giving it a 5-star rating and review, or by following it or sharing it. Let's build a community of people that are curious and always learning. Now, back to the show. When traditional financing failed, Walt and Roy got creative. Trying to secure a huge loan wasn't working, so they went looking for an investor instead. Walt already knew that TV was an effective medium for promoting his projects, so it was logical to move in that direction again with Disneyland. TVs in homes were becoming more common, and networks were looking for programming. NBC and CBS were interested in paying Walt and Roy to produce television programs, but that's where their interest ended. Neither network was willing to put up the capital required to build Disneyland. But there was one network who was willing to take the leap, and that network was the American Broadcasting Company, better known as ABC. To wrap my head around this agreement between Disney and ABC, it helps me to picture Roy pitching his proposal to a panel of investors as if he was on Shark Tank. Roy was looking for a substantial amount of money to build Disneyland, in exchange for a weekly TV show which would promote the park. In these negotiations, ABC agreed to give Walt and Roy $500,000 in exchange for 34.48% equity in Disneyland Inc., the corporation created to build and operate the park. They also agreed to guarantee $4.5 million in bank loans. And part of the deal, of course, included a weekly show to be aired on ABC. Striking this deal with ABC made Disneyland possible. With funding secured, a location picked out, and the blueprints ready to go, they were off to the races. The clearing of orange groves and preparatory work began on July 16, 1954, and the park was set to open just 12 months later. Why the huge rush? Have you seen Disneyland? How are you going to build all of that in 1 year? I had to know who was behind setting this insane deadline. And the answer is simply Walt. He not only set the goal, he publicly committed to it on national TV. ABC did not impose a formal construction deadline. This urgency came solely from Walt, but he had some good reasons. With all of his chips in and everything on the line, this park would not see any revenue until it was completed. Waiting 2 or 3 years for the park to be done was not an option, because ABC didn't give Walt unlimited money or open-ended credit. The longer the project took, the more money it would cost in labor hours. So speed, under those conditions, worked in Walt's favor. And aside from all of that, this fell in line with Walt's personality and leadership style. He wanted Disneyland built now. Construction began in July, and on October 27th, the first of many weekly TV episodes debuted. In this first show, Walt introduced the park to the world, showing models and concept art, and explained what future episodes would be like. 52% of all TV sets in the United States tuned in for this. I bet ABC was feeling pretty good about their decision already. The TV series was appropriately called Disneyland, as it reinforced the idea that the TV show and the physical park were part of a single concept. And the main purpose of the TV show was to build anticipation for the park. Calling the TV series anything other than Disneyland would have probably been a misstep. Anyway, the hour-long weekly show, hosted by Walt himself, contained entertainment thematically tied to the park. The series was an anthology built around the 4 different lands within the park: Fantasyland, Adventureland, Frontierland, and Tomorrowland. Episodes included cartoon shorts, live-action segments, outdoor adventure documentaries, science and futurism programs, all of which were meant to help people envision what Disneyland was going to be like. Walt even gave occasional progress reports, showing footage of the construction, giving people sneak peeks into the park. This approach was virtually unprecedented at the time. Never before had an entertainment attraction been promoted so thoroughly through a recurring national television narrative. I watched a whole documentary about the construction of Disneyland, and while watching it, I had the thought, wait a minute, if Sleeping Beauty didn't come out until 1959, what is the iconic Sleeping Beauty castle doing there from the park's opening in 1955? Well, it turns out that Sleeping Beauty had already been in production, so placing the castle in Disneyland was Walt's way of promoting its upcoming release. Everything was a promo for something. The early TV shows promoted his next film, the Disneyland TV series promoted the park, and the park promoted future films. And every production piece promoted the brand. This is some brilliant marketing by Walt. I'm reminded of our advertising episode where I talk about brand image by David Ogilvy and Don Schultz's integrated marketing communication strategies. Remember that? Great stuff. Anyway, in this documentary titled Disneyland Handcrafted, people involved in the construction described the whole operation as frantic, chaotic, yet obsessively detailed. Carpenters, painters, machinists, and artists worked around the clock with precision and expert craftsmanship. This is all to be expected, considering the time crunch, but what struck me was Walt's demeanor. He was calm, measured, and quietly determined, even as time and money was running out. According to those who worked with him, Walt expressed that having been flat broke many times before made risky situations less paralyzing. He often explained that failing early in life had made him less fearful. He had already gone bankrupt, lost businesses, and faced rejection many times. He is quoted as saying, "It is good to have a failure while you're young. Once you've lived through the worst, you're never quite as vulnerable afterward." Walt didn't have blind confidence, he had grounded optimism and calculated courage. It's not that he was completely fearless, he had just learned that failure wasn't fatal. So while everyone else was biting their nails through the construction process of Disneyland, Walt remained collected. Opening day was set for July 17, 1955, and as the day approached, many features were still unfinished. Workers were still painting, pouring concrete, and finishing landscaping up to the day before the opening. Just weeks before opening day, a plumber's strike had created a labor shortage. Walt was suddenly faced with a weird decision. There wasn't going to be enough time and labor to install both drinking fountains and bathrooms. He had to pick one or the other. Walt chose bathrooms. Opening day had arrived, and the park was not fully finished. But Walt moved forward anyway. At that point, progress was more important than polish, I suppose. Contemporary press coverage described seeing active construction and landscaping still happening in certain parts of the park. The recently poured concrete hadn't fully set in some places, causing women's high heels to sink into it. There was still wet paint on some of the rides and buildings, too. They were also expecting about 15,000 guests, as Day 1 was an invite-only event, but due to counterfeit tickets and fence jumpers, Day 1 received almost double the expected number of people. Food and beverages ran out within hours. It was a mess. In later years, Disney executives and park employees referred to that first day as Black Sunday. When Walt was asked when the park would be fully finished, he replied, "Disneyland will never be completed as long as there is imagination left in the world." Great answer, Walt. Nice dodge. Despite the chaos and the loose ends, opening day was a success in terms of national exposure and cultural impact. It was broadcast live on ABC, reaching an estimated 90 million viewers, half the U.S. population at the time. Walt gave a short dedication speech, a speech that is still displayed on a plaque in the park today. It reads, "To all who come to this happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land. Here, age relives fond memories of the past, and here, youth may savor the challenge and promise of the future. Disneyland is dedicated to the ideals, the dreams, and the hard facts that have created America, with the hope that it will be a source of joy and inspiration to all the world." Today, there are Disney theme parks at 6 resort locations around the world. The one we've been talking about in Anaheim, Disney World in Orlando, and there's also a Disneyland in Paris, Tokyo, Hong Kong, and Shanghai. This story began with a kid in grade school who liked to draw and aspired to be a newspaper cartoonist. A kid who loved spectacle, performance, and fantastical entertainment. That little kid named Walter Elias Disney never outgrew those interests or his ability to dream big. And when he became a father, dissatisfied with the current options, he envisioned a better place for parents to have fun with their kids. He said, "Disneyland isn't designed just for children. When does a person stop being a child? Can you say that a child is ever entirely eliminated from an adult? I believe that the right kind of entertainment can appeal to all persons, young or old. I want Disneyland to be a place where parents can bring their children or come by themselves and still have a good time." So hey, if you're a Disney adult and people are making fun of you for that, you can pull out that quote and be like, "See, Walt approves." All right, that concludes the origin story of Disneyland. If you've never been, it's definitely worth going at least once in your life. I was blown away by the attention to detail, the level of complete immersion into each world. I'm not even a Disney guy, and I thought it was awesome. Definitely lives up to the hype. Man, I feel like Disney should be paying me for all this. All right, that's it for today. I'll be back in a couple of weeks with another random origin. Until next time, so long. Research, music, and production was all done by Desiree Wilson. This podcast is listener-supported and definitely not sponsored by Disney Corporation. Owned and operated by Jess and myself under the On the Origin of Everything LLC in the United States. All rights reserved. We can be reached via email at info@ontheoriginpod.com.